Turtle. I like turtle. I like turtle. I like turtle. I like turtle. Turtle. I like turtle. I like turtle. I like turtle. I like turtle. Dum beat. 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 Turtle. I like turtle. I like turtle.
All right, what's up, Turtle Riders? How are we all doing out there tonight? I am going to go ahead right now and share this link on the Turtle Boy Sports Forever page, as well as the Clarence Woods Emerson page, which miraculously is still up. If you guys want to go ahead and share those, let people know. I know this is not our regularly scheduled live program, but we have a special guest here tonight, so I wanted to have him on, talk about a lot of things pertaining to one of my, basically the existence of Turtle Boy. This guy specializes in it, and that would be the First Amendment. So with us tonight is attorney Marc Randazza. Did I pronounce that right, Marc?
Close enough.
How you say it right?
No, that's how you say it in English.
Okay, that's how you say it. All right. So Marc is a pretty well-known First Amendment attorney. Mike Cernovich referred to him as the Clarence Darrow of the free speech movement. For those of you kids out there, Clarence Darrow was the guy, the lawyer, the ACLU hired to defend John Scopes in court in the 1920s to teach evolution in schools. He was kind of like a pioneer of free speech. So it's quite the compliment. So Marc is you've passed the bar. You can practice law, I believe, in Nevada, Massachusetts, and what other states?
Florida, Massachusetts, Florida, Arizona, California, and Nevada.
Oh wow!
And then I've got like 20-something federal licenses.
And you're a Gloucester guy, though. I see.
I am, yes. Born and raised in Gloucester, so I figured I'd dress up tonight for the show and represent.
Excellent. All right, so I was reading a lot about you before you came on. I mean, I've heard of you before. Obviously, you're kind of a well-known guy. So you first came to my attention early in 2018. So I had a Facebook page with like 112,000 followers. And a pretty strong Twitter account too. I was followed by people like Michelle Malkin, Cassandra Fairbanks, people of influence. And I earned them. I looked at that. Like I earned their follows by creating quality content, etc. And then one day it all just came crashing down in late November of 2017. They just took the page away. There was just no explanation. A social justice warrior organized a mob. She masqueraded it. And over the years, I keep making new pages and I've lost count on many, 40, 50. I can't even count. I build them up to about 20, 25,000. They get taken down. So I realize I'll always have a presence on these platforms. I'll just never be able to truly grow. And it hurts me, my bottom line, because I can't drive traffic to the website. So anyway, back a couple of years ago, I was interested in contacting attorneys about this because I was all gung-ho about suing Facebook. But I quickly realized, and that's how I found your name, but I kind of quickly realized, and we've talked about this, that that's kind of a pipe dream, no?
Yeah, there's a law called Section 230, and it was originally part of the Communications Decency Act. In 1996, they were trying to make take porn off the internet, and that worked out perfectly for them. But so after that didn't work out, when they got to when that was taken up to the Supreme Court said, no. You're not banning porn from the internet. So they struck out all the portions of the, thank God, right? I mean, run a batch, everybody.
Yeah.
But, by the time they got, what was left of it was this portion of it that made platforms immune for liability for things that were on their sites. But it also made them immune if they took down things off their site. So simultaneously, the way it's been interpreted now is that if you are a neutral platform that doesn't take anything down, you're not liable for anything that's up on the site. So whatever we say tonight, that goes on YouTube, you can't sue YouTube for it. But also, they're not liable, even if they're not neutral, and they just decide to curate the content and take down everything they want.
So
It's
basically
essentially blanket liability. Imagine if they gave Exxon, complete immunity if they spill gasoline in the harbor, if they're doing something careful, or if they spill something in the harbor on purpose. It doesn't really matter. You're not liable anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, I think Senator Hawley called it a sweetheart deal. Like they have the best of both worlds. They get the ability to take down everything that they want on their website, yet they don't get classified as a publisher, so they're not legally responsible for things that appear. Now, it is a good thing that platforms get immunity because, like, for instance, my comment section is a cesspool of debauchery. I don't read it. I don't. It's just nonsense. I don't even. It's ridiculous. I don't have time to monitor. I'm not good. So my options with my comment section are either just let it go, or independently regulate it all the time, and I choose option A.
Yeah, look, it can be a good thing, but it's there was an economist, I forget who it was, but he said there's no such thing as solutions, just trade-offs. So there is a trade-off here. And, I think there might be a smarter way to deal with it because in 1996, this seemed like a great idea. And all the way up through, the mid 2000s, it seemed like a great idea, and then, mid-November 2016, all of a sudden, people started to freak out that they didn't predict the election the way they thought they would.
You should mention that date. Because I talked to you about this. I feel like that was what changed everything is the election of Donald Trump. I don't think I would be having any of the problems I had right now if Hillary had just won like she was supposed to.
Correct. That's exactly how it would have been. Look, I was a volunteer in the Obama campaign in 2008. My daughter was born 4 days late because I said, "Oh no, you can't have the C-section that day. I gotta work." Yeah. So
that's kind of interesting.
Imagine that marriage didn't work out. But anyway, back then we were sort of laughing because it's like, the conservatives are trying to do something on the internet. Look at them. I mean, they look like a bunch of monkeys trying to fuck a football. But then you get to 2016, and guess what? By then, did you not notice that people were getting memes from their great aunt, my aunt and my grandparents, and old people figured out how to use the internet over 8 years.
And that's why kids went to Twitter and Instagram because their grandmothers.
Right, but the Democrats did not recognize that the Republicans were now online, and they didn't poll them the way that they thought they would. So, hey, I was as shocked as anybody when I woke up on the day after Election Day. I was on an airplane to Poland, and I woke up in midair with Ambien cobwebs in my head and had to ask the stewardess if I was really seeing that or if I was having a hallucination.
That happened. Yeah, it happened.
So immediately, Silicon Valley started to say, "Oh my God, what are we going to do?" And they started flexing their muscles. And look, man, you are now, think about how the implications for this today. You cannot go out and protest today in the public square because you just can't do it. Right. Yeah. Well, because of COVID or because of the reaction to COVID. We're probably going to get into that, I'd imagine. But yes, because of the emergency, we got to be locked down now until nobody ever dies again. We can't go out and protest. So you go and protest online. But you know what? If Mark Zuckerberg, Twitter and Google decide, if the three of those companies decide they don't want you to protest, your protest doesn't exist, buddy.
That's exactly a good point. I've always said that if people are saying, well, just don't use it. People are like, just don't use Facebook. Just don't use Twitter. It's like, I might as well write in my diary then. You're literally invisible because they've monopolized. What these companies have done is they've monopolized the public square. They have a monopoly on people. Everybody goes to them. Your kid's soccer team instinctively creates a Facebook page where they make announcements, and it's just assumed that you will be on there and you can have access to it.
Right.
So,
and if you don't agree with the right political stream, you don't exist.
No, it's kind of funny you mentioned that. So you're an Obama guy. I voted for Obama too in 2008. I wouldn't even consider voting for Democrats anytime soon. But back then things were different, and I do feel like when you were in the 90s and you were fighting for the right of pornographers to do their thing on the internet, and God bless you for that. I feel like back then liberals were the ones fighting for free speech, and now it's flipped. And now conservatives are the ones fighting for it, and liberals are fighting for censorship.
Yeah, isn't it weird? It just flipped. Just all of a sudden it flipped. Before, I mean, look, when I decided I wanted to be a lawyer, I mean, you can see over my head here that Jerry Falwell, if you've ever seen The People versus Larry Flint.
Oh, I have.
I mean, I sat in that movie theater and I said, that's what I want to do when I grow up.
That's what I was reading on your Wikipedia page. It's like the first thing you were inspired by the Larry Flint case.
Oh, that's still on there. That's like vandalized by these social justice pussies that I don't even read it. Yeah. But that was really inspiring to me. And it was always these conservatives who said we can't have sexual speech. We're going to want to ban adult bookstores. I mean, one of my first fun cases is I worked on opening up an adult bookstore in a town in Florida, in Yulee, Florida, which pretty much, if anybody, I hope probably nobody from Yulee watches this so we can make fun of them. There's really nothing there except a porno shop and some Baptist churches. And they were just livid that we were doing that. It was all coming from the right. And then just very, very gradually, I mean, really, the political correctness thing started back in the 80s. I mean, I went to UMass, and
me too.
I remember that my first time I got in trouble, I had a Dead Kennedys poster on my door. And it wasn't because it said Dead Kennedys. It said Nazi punks fuck off with the swastika, with the circle, with a line through it. And I got in trouble for anti-Semitism. And I was like, that's the exact opposite of that. That's the red sign means, don't do that. That's not something we support.
Now, it's funny that you bring that up because you've so when people have, if you read about you on, outlets like BuzzFeed or whatever, they call you like the attorney of the alt-right, and they try, and the Huffington Post, I believe, tried to like associate you with the alt-right because it's literally your job to do that, but it doesn't mean, right? It doesn't mean that you agree with your clients all the time.
No, I mean, look, and it's not the Huffington Post. It's one douchebag there that has a problem with it because he has a problem with one of my clients. Yeah, fuck him. But, hey, I'm not writing about him. He's writing about me.
Exactly.
So, I mean, look, before all this, I was derided as the smut lawyer. And I said, that's kind of a fun title. Now I'm the alt-right lawyer. Meanwhile, I sit around with a bunch with alt-right people, and I'm like, I don't agree with anything you guys are saying.
Anybody in specific who you hang out with? Who's alt-right that you hang out with?
I mean, look, I don't really. They're clients, so I don't really want to discuss it. I don't really hang out with them socially, but we'll be at a meeting and I'll be listening to them and I'll say, yeah, all right, and they'll say, don't you think, for example, immigration? I am super pro immigration.
Yeah,
I want to knock down that border. I want to have a stampede of people from south of the border move here because, listen,
you gotta get your yard finished or something.
Well, I mean yes. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's like, dude, Brazilians are awesome. They're like flooding into Massachusetts, and I think they're making things better, to be honest with you.
The reason I bring this up is because, obviously, like a lot of your beliefs personally are liberal, but you're associated with some of your clients tend to not be. So one of your most famous clients is Alex Jones. Did you represent him on the Sandy Hook thing? I did. Tell me about that. So in case you're from, he obviously was a Sandy Hook truther. And
a lot of what's reported about what he said isn't really true. He had a guy on who was an expert who was brought on to every national news network after Columbine as a school safety expert, as a law enforcement expert. This was a guy that you took as very credible. He comes on Alex's show and says, I don't think this happened at all. I think this is all a big hoax, essentially. And Jones was sort of waffling back and forth on it. There was a point at which he bought into that. I mean, I'm sure I could come up with some, harebrained theory right now and convince you of it. I mean, you got a good bullshit detector, but
the thing about Alex Jones is he's he's fucking hilarious. And
he can be.
He's crazy. Like he was last week. He was talking about eating his neighbors. He's an entertainer. Who takes him that seriously?
Sure, but I mean, even that, the way people reported on that is, oh, I'm glad I'm not his neighbor. Meanwhile, Alex is saying what I think, we could easily say is, hey, if it comes to it, if things become this bad, am I going to eat my neighbor or am I going to let my kids go hungry?
It's just the way he says it that's funny.
Yes.
Come down to me and you. I'm gonna eat my neighbor. You better believe it. You look delicious. It's like
he has got a mannerism about him, just a way about him. I mean, I will say I've hung out with him on and off camera, and it will make a lot of people mad, but I actually like him. I think he's a good guy in person. He's a good guy in private, and frankly, his show is his show. There are times I've been on his show where he'll ask me some question, and I really. It's very obvious that I'm deer in the headlights because I couldn't even follow the question, and I just answer whatever I think he's asking.
So you've also represented in other cases. Let me pull this up. I mean, you've got like a litany of different type of defendants you've represented. You've obviously represented, people like him and stuff like that. But you've also
bring up the bar proceedings.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
I'm always in detention.
I know, but I want to talk about specifically anti-slap because this is something I deal with a lot. So, what is anti-slap?
All right, so anti-slap. Think of it as a look. If you have a bullshit lawsuit against you for exercising your First Amendment rights, are you familiar with this at all?
Oh, all too familiar.
All right, so if you live in one of the states that has passed a good anti-slap law, you don't get that worried about it. And frankly, you have a stampede of lawyers willing to represent you for free.
And just to be clear, so people are anti-slap is basically laws that prevent plaintiffs from bringing frivolous, ridiculous suits in front of a court in the first place, correct?
Pretty much, yeah. SLAP stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. It is I hate kind of made up terms for acronyms' sake, but that's what it is. Mm-hmm. So if it used to be a lot of the government would sue people or the government would bring charges against somebody if they defamed somebody on the school committee, for example. Well, you really can't do that. Then it was just developers doing this to people who were getting all NIMBY. Mm-hmm. So almost every state passed a law that would stop you from getting sued for standing up and testifying at a hearing. Then California said, hey, why are we only making it the right to petition? Why don't we do all five, do freedom of speech as well under the First Amendment? So if it's First Amendment protected speech and you get sued for it, here's what happens. Normally in a lawsuit, I sue you, you have to answer it, then I hit you with discovery. Then, $75,000 later, maybe you win.
Yeah. That discovery word is the most expensive word in the English language.
Right. My very first anti-slap suit I was a young lawyer. It was really my first case that my boss had let me take on my own. And I fought the hell out of this thing. I mean, I won, and I was up against a great big firm. And it was just me, and they were like looking down at me like, who the fuck do you think you are? And I'm like, you know who I am? I finished dead last in my law school class. That's who I am. So that means I'm the scrappiest guy in the class. I beat him. And then I call the client. And I'm like, hey, man, we won. And he said, well, if we won, how come my retirement fund is empty? And I was like, damn, that took the wind out of it. It wasn't just it was a good experience of learning like the cost to a client that I had cleared out this guy's retirement fund to win, mm-hmm. But now he's screwed.
Yeah, and so, you don't get that money back when you win. You rarely see judges,
almost never
make them pay for court fees. So basically, This can be courts. What I've seen is a playground for two different kinds of people: the wealthy and the crazy douchebags. Yes. And so for the wealthy, it's what they have limited.
It's a playground.
So this is just a way to try to silence speech. For the pro se douchebags, I mean, they're easier to beat. But for people like me who have an LLC, we're required under Massachusetts law that
Yeah.
I mean, I could fight these stupid lawsuits on my own because they're so terrible. But I'm required by law to hire an attorney, and just getting them to file the motion to dismiss or summary judgment, or whatever, it's
Right.
5-10 grand here, 5-10 grand there, and it adds up.
Right.
And
But
you'll
if you
get
were in
off.
a state, if you lived in a state or you get sued in a state where you have an anti-slap law, here's what happens. They file the complaint. You file an anti-slap motion. Now, brakes go on, everything stops, and the court has to evaluate that motion now and figure out, does this case pertain to your freedom of speech? That's usually really easy. And then, is it likely to prevail? And if they can't come up with a way to show that they're going to prevail in this thing, if it's obvious that this is a
What
crap
do they have to
suit,
show in that case? Do they show damages?
no, it can get kind of complicated. It's almost like summary judgment. So these things can be kind of expensive. I mean, I've done them for 10 grand. I've done them for 100 grand. It all depends on the case.
If it's expensive to file an anti-slap, doesn't that defeat the purpose of anti-slap?
Not always, because first of all, it's still always less expensive than going to trial. Still less expensive than going all the way to a regular summary judgment.
Here's the thing, I've never even made it to trial, and I still am paying out crazy amounts of money.
But here's what it does. It also flips the attorney's fees over. See, instead of everybody walks away and you pay your own fees, the courts have to give you your fees.
I see.
So when you win, you file a fee motion and the court has to give you that.
Okay.
Right. So when you've got the other party running up the bill, you look at him and you say, look, you're the one who's going to be paying this.
Mm-hmm. And in Massachusetts, our anti-slaps are
garbage,
pretty weak. Whereas in Nevada, I believe they're really strong.
Yes. Yeah. I lobbied for and worked on the drafting of the Nevada one. And then there was an attempt to repeal it. So we brushed it up a little bit to beat that. Yeah. Massachusetts, it has a garbage one. It's a disgrace that the cradle of goddamn liberty doesn't have a good anti-slap law, making its freedom of speech clause here mean something.
What can be done? I've talked to Senator Fatman about this, and I could talk to some other people about it, but can legislation fix that?
Absolutely. Be very easy to fix it. The problem is, you have to get enough legislators who will, get involved and want to do it. I mean, when we did it in Nevada, it passed unanimously.
I mean, theoretically, this should be a liberal cause. Like, the little guy getting picked on by millionaires in court, and they're wasting the court's time with this. Shouldn't this be a liberal cause?
Back when liberals liked free speech.
That's
true, yeah. That's changed now, right? All you got to do is bring one person in and say, well, somebody hurt my feelings on the internet one time because they called me a bad name, and you're gonna lose half the state house.
And that's the thing about what I do is I'm not sympathetic at all. Like I'm not, and I don't try to be. I've never claimed to be a sympathetic person, and the people that you represent are not sympathetic, and I think that plays into.
Some of them are. I do represent some nice people, like the
person, the Glenn Beck person, the person who made
that guy was nice, or like. You ever see the podcast, The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe?
Haven't seen it.
Steve Novella, one of the nicest people I've ever met. And it was, it is nice when I have a client that I'm like, oh, this is a nice person, or I'm representing Lisa Bloom, the attorney. A lot of people have a problem with her, but I really think she's a nice person.
You represented Lisa Bloom over what?
She's being sued for defamation by Steve Wynn.
Oh, really? Okay. Wait, haven't you represented Steve Wynn before too?
Oh, no. Okay. Steve Wynn, I think my middle name is fucking.
Oh.
Like Marc fucking Randazza.
Yeah. And speaking of, I was reading a brief before in 2006. See if I can get this up. This is an actual freaking legal document. I couldn't believe this when I was reading this. Mark, there was so you've done trademark and stuff. Let me pull this up. Hold on one sec.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this is trademark stuff. And this is an applicant for trademark of fuckingmachines.com. And you had to go and literally write like, a bunch of pages here about why the word fuck is not expensive, because you even list here that like, oh, fuck can mean a lot of things, like fuck you at a football referee. And I mean, I've never seen the word fuck so many times in a legal document, but here it is.
Yeah, it was. This was a lot of fun. This was. I do trademark law, and we were trying to register a trademark for my client, fuckingmachines.com. It's a, it's not something you'll find on PBS. So, I'm sure all the young kids out there probably shouldn't check it out. But the trademark office said you can't register that because there used to be a law that said it was immoral and scandalous. So if you had an immoral or scandalous trademark, they wouldn't register it.
Yeah.
Which is this fuckingmachines.com?
No, it is not.
Okay, good.
I was going to load this up to show you. I was going to ask you what you think of this person. So I'm being sued by so many people right now.
Right.
Hard to keep track. One woman out of Rhode Island, I'm being currently represented by the ACLU there, luckily, and it saved me a lot of money. So this woman, she filmed herself getting kicked out of Kent Hospital in Warwick for pretending to have a stroke. This woman she's a complete lunatic. She wanted to be, we call her Failure Swift because she wanted to be on American Idol, didn't make it. Thinks she's friends with Zac Efron, like complete lunatic. Absolutely. Draining her husband's bank account. She's gone through like 7 different husbands. She just drains them all one after another.
Is she single?
Give it a couple months. Yeah, I don't think you want to be number 8, but so this is her getting kicked out of the hospital. Check this out. She's pretending to have a stroke. So she actually posted this on Facebook. She wanted media attention. She's like, share it. Everybody share it. Get the news. The news, of course, does not pick up on it because it's obviously not real. But I do. And I write about it. And we put it out there. And she doesn't like the fact that we mocked her and called her Failure Swift. So she hired an attorney who happens to be a Rhode Island state representative. And he wrote a complaint in Rhode Island court, in district court down there, or superior court rather, in all caps, mind you. I've never seen a complaint written literally in all caps.
The whole complaint?
The entire complaint was written in all caps. It was amazing to see. And I couldn't believe
That's not how you do it.
This guy can't be real. I'm like, this guy's really representative. And literally, like, one of the things she was suing for was that her feelings were hurt by the blog. And the ACLU got it removed to federal court because interstate or whatever. I'm in Mass. I don't do business in Rhode Island. But this is just one example of just the ridiculousness of. Yeah.
And look, since Rhode Island doesn't have an anti-slap law, you're lucky not only that the ACLU took it, that I'm actually impressed the ACLU cared about a free speech case in the modern era. That
smaller state, they can be a little pickier,
Yeah, it's been a while since I've heard that happen. But this is the kind of thing that if you ask for media attention and you get it, you can't complain that you didn't get the kind you didn't want.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, this woman, I could go on and on about this woman. She 3 months later, what inspired this lawsuit was she was in bed. Her husband was in bed, and this guy is a high school teacher, and he wanted to watch a show, and she does not work. She sells like fragrances online or something. And the guy just wanted to watch a show, and she was complaining that it was too loud. And so she starts filming him and uploads it to Facebook, just emasculating this guy. And he accuses her. He's like, I saw all the money that you took from my bank account. You don't make a goddamn dime. I know you're talking to that lawyer about divorcing me and all this stuff.
Oh God.
And she just emasculates him. So I write it's hilarious to watch it. I write a blog about it, and she claims that I hacked into her Facebook, and I guess it was in the room too, filming her and put it up, and I framed her, and this is literally what I'm being sued over. This is my world.
Yeah. So this is why, not just Massachusetts, but Rhode Island could use a real anti-slap law. I mean, this is the kind of thing. It's just a hidden tax on anybody who exercises their First Amendment rights. But it's a surprise one. You might be able to cruise through without ever getting sued, and you might draw a lot of flack and get sued all the time. But either way, it hurts you even if you don't get sued, because I want the marketplace of ideas to be completely open and free. You know, I want even broadcasts that I don't like. I want blogs I don't like out there. I want all this stuff out there because I feel like if you have a broad marketplace of ideas, you're going to have plenty of shit to buy in it.
Yeah. Now, have you ever dealt with like a client that I mean, I guess you don't deal with criminals, so you don't really have guilty or not guilty. Have you ever defended a client that you didn't really feel comfortable defending, but you did it anyway because it was your job?
Yeah, definitely.
How do you deal with it? I mean, how do you,
I mean, like there was a time, I've done a number of cases where I represented police officers who shot people.
Really? That's not criminal? Oh, so it's all civil. Okay.
I mean, no, it was like internal affairs defense. You know, so it was.
Were you on retainer with the union, or did they hire you?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Okay, so you were the guy. All right.
Yes.
They did not include that in your Wikipedia. I did not read that about you.
Yeah, no, don't worry. It'll be waiting for me when I go to hell. That's it'll be one of the first things that we have to address.
Are you saying that like you might have gotten a favorable outcome for your client that you necessarily didn't agree with if you were related to the victim?
I did my job to the best of my abilities under the rules of professional conduct.
Let me ask you something about the Satanic Temple people. So this is another thing that you made news for. In May of 2018,
some of the coolest people in the fucking world.
Who are they? What's the deal? What is the deal? The Satanic Temple. Who the hell are they?
They are an organization that is based in Salem, Massachusetts.
Okay.
You know, and they have created a religion, and this religion is Satanism. But it's not Satanism as, you know, one of the funny things that they say is like, you know, how can you believe in Satan? And they say, we don't really believe in Satan. You're thinking of Christians. You know, they're really sort of an advocacy organization. They go around everywhere that they can find, like there's a 10 Commandments display somewhere on government property. They say, okay, if you're going to have freedom of religion under the First Amendment, well, then you need to include all religions. So here's our statue of Baphomet, you know, and so they got like the statue with the horned, you know, goat-headed god with the two little children looking up at him. And it's a beautiful piece of work. They have it in Salem, and they truck it all over the place when they want to put it on display. Okay. So, yeah, I represented them against Twitter.
Yeah, so they were against off of Twitter, and then you represented them. But then 3 months later, according to what I've read, they determined that you were alt-right, and they ditched you.
No, it was even better than that.
Okay.
You know, in what was a fabulous boost to my ego, there was a schism in the church.
Oh,
because there were some elements in the church that decided they did not want the alt-right lawyer representing them. So they said that if you don't fire him as your lawyer, we're going to leave the church.
For free. You were doing it pro bono.
For free. Yeah. You know, so, yeah, I don't know how they make any money. But yeah, I was, you know, doing this for free for them. And the leadership of the church said, well, if you want to leave over who we picked as our lawyer, because you don't like who else he represents, you know, then go on and start your own Satanic Church. So there was a schism in the church because I was too evil to represent the Satanists to some people. But you know, to their credit, you know, their leadership understood that. Look, if you know, one of the proudest cases I've ever done. Frankly, I'm extremely proud of having represented a Nazi.
Yeah, which one was that? Was
Andrew Anglin?
Andrew Anglin. Okay.
Yeah, and look, I don't like anything the guy has to say. You know, but it's got nothing to do with that. If I don't protect speech that I don't like, if I don't protect speech that nobody likes, then I'm not protecting any speech at all. You know, and in that case, what I argued to the court, and you may find this persuasive, but the court didn't. I said, look, I understand it's very alluring to want to rule against the Nazi. You know, who wants to go home and tell their wife, well, today I issued a ruling in favor of a Nazi. Not many people want to do that. And I said, but what you do to the Nazi today, you do to the civil rights protester tomorrow. And the judge said, yeah, well, that may be, but, still ruling against him. And, as if it were.
Well, in this case, I believe
perfectly.
If I understood this case correctly, it wasn't what he was saying. It was that he was directing mob to go after.
Yes,
girl, right?
This should be dear to your heart. Yes, because what he did is he wrote, he wrote something and he said, nobody do anything to this person. It's going to be we don't want to cause any problems.
Yeah.
And, the theory was by saying don't do it, you're really saying to do it.
So that's been established?
It's not so much established as it worked in one case. It's not that it's going to work in every case, but
that's literally what I dealt with 6 days ago in a Manchester, New Hampshire courtroom.
Yes. And that is what DeRay McKesson, kind of I don't know that Black Lives Matter has a leader, but he's really like the godfather of Black Lives Matter. Mm. That's what he's dealing with in Louisiana and in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. The same exact logic that they used against my client, they're now enemies of Black Lives Matter are using against DeRay McKesson because he organized a protest. That protest got a little out of hand. Some of the people who were there hurt a cop, and the cop sued. So the cop is saying that DeRay is responsible because his followers did these things, essentially in his name. It is utter crap. I mean, it is so contrary to the First Amendment. And, what I tried to explain to people that the reason I represented the Nazi was frankly to defend, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all the same First Amendment. And if you take it away from one person, you're taking it away from all of us. You cannot have just it's an exception because this is a philosophy that we dislike.
Yeah. The every asshole who's ever tried to sue me in order to get around the First Amendment has gone that route. Well, he didn't do this. He didn't, because I'm very careful with my words. I never call for violence. I specifically ask people not to do that. I use my words. So they always get around that and they say, well, he's not doing it, but third parties read his work and then they went and they harassed me. It's like, well, first of all, I have 3 million monthly readers on the website every month. Yeah. I cannot control what they do. And when I was in a courtroom in New Hampshire last week dealing with this once again, I said to the judge, because the guy made the argument, well, Your Honor, he tells people do not do this, and that's a dog whistle for them to do it. And I said, Your Honor, what would you like me to write? Do you want me to write? Yes, go and harass him. And she said, well, what if you write nothing? How about you write nothing? I'm like, then they're going to do it anyway. I'm like, this is the best I can come up with. I don't know what you want me to do. If you rule against me in this, you are setting the precedent now that people like me are responsible for the behavior of our followers.
The judge actually said, how about if you write nothing?
That's what she said. Yeah.
In New Hampshire.
It's a Maggie Hassan appointed judge.
I mean, New Hampshire has a stronger free speech clause than even the First Amendment.
You would think so. To live for your die.
How about you? Yeah, well, look, New Hampshire has such a strong free speech clause that it was protected under the First Amendment when a guy working in a courthouse saw a couple having trouble paying their parking ticket or a speeding ticket or something. And he said, hey, if you need money, you can meet me at this hotel and I'll shoot a porno of you. And he shot that, and that was First Amendment protected.
Really?
Well, yeah, it's a great case. I mean, live free or die.
Well, with my various harassment order hearings, like I've had them in Massachusetts. This is the fifth person who's tried to take a harassment order against me. First of all, I'm this quasi, like I'm a journalist, but I'm also a blogger and I'm an entertainer, and I just can't imagine if a journalist for the newspaper or whatever wrote a story about somebody and that somebody just filed a harassment order and that journalist had to go to court. That doesn't happen to journalists. Why does it happen? How is it so easy to happen to me, but not other journalists?
Because you are in the sweet spot for getting sued. You're big enough that what you say matters, but you're not big enough that you can afford really expensive lawyers to put up enough of a fight. You're right there. So you're going to need to either shrink or get more money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So step one, collect underpants. Step three, profit.
Exactly. Yeah, because I've had like, this one woman in Milford has taken me to court now 3 times for harassment orders, and I see the same judge every time, and I'm like,
like restraining orders, like you were dating her and you hit her.
I wrote about her. I wrote blogs about her, but like a year ago, she was running a house in Milford that was supposed to be a homeless shelter for women, but really it was just a ghetto boarding shelter. It was a huge scam that she was collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars on. And I investigated and I found out all the stuff. And I basically ruined her scam that she had going. And she's a gypsy. She moves from state to state. This is just what she does. Her name is Hadassah. And she just doesn't like it. So she files harassment orders about me. She said that, he came to my house and I have a picture of his car sitting outside my house. I've never been to this woman's house. So I'm like, they show the evidence in court and I see the evidence. It's a picture of my license plate, like zoomed in. There's no picture of the car. She probably took it when I was at court last time. Like that's literally, and it's just, why do judges humor this nonsense? Why do I have to take a day off from work to drive to Milford to fight this?
Because judges are people too. And, some of them are fallible. I mean, they're all fallible. But also, I've been in court on behalf of clients a lot where I'll sit and say, I'll argue about what they have as a First Amendment right. And the judge is very reluctant to rule in my favor. They'll do it. And then they'll say, but tell your client to knock it off. And I'll be like, yeah, okay, I'll do that as soon as we get outside, Your Honor. I'll be all over that. And I'll tell them, knock it off until next time you want to pay me to deal with this.
I was just in court in Attleboro Court 2 months ago for a woman who actually, I think I briefly mentioned this before. She was she got a temporary harassment order against me. And it was basically an attempt to stop me from writing about her. And it's in this state. I feel like if you are female, it's a lot easier to get a harass because they don't grant them to everybody. Not everyone can just go in and get I tried to get a harassment order against her in my district court and I did not get it. A hearing was set up, but I feel like it's like if you go in there and you have a good sob story and you're crying and you can just point to mean old turtle boy, he's doing this to me, judges are more likely to grant it.
I don't know. How's that male privilege working out for you?
Yeah, it's not going too well, man.
You gotta come down to the secret white male meeting hall where we hand out the privilege tokens.
Yes,
that's the problem. You haven't got your white male privilege tokens.
I always ask people about my white male privilege. I'm like, what? How much do you pay for my privilege?
You don't come to the meetings. You don't come to the secret meetings. I've never seen you at one of the meetings.
Never.
So that's why.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, these judges a lot of times. Do you remember? I don't even know if I can bring up Bill Cosby without getting hate mail. But Bill Cosby, when I was a kid, had this really funny HBO special, Bill Cosby himself, and he would tell stories about his kids. And he said, tell stories about his kids fighting, and then he would just say, "Parents do not care about justice; they want quiet." So it doesn't matter, like if the baby took something from the older one and they're fighting, he like takes it away, gives it to the baby, and says, "Shut up." Sometimes judges are like that. They're not there to do justice. They're there to do quiet.
I always feel like it's a little bit of laziness on their part. It's like they're not ballsy. They don't, because there's no filter when it comes to courts. Like if I bring a civil suit to get forward, some of these are so absurd that are coming forward, and why is there no like filter or minimum requirement to say, no, we're not giving this to a judge. Our courtrooms are supposed to be a serious place. Why is there no filter for this stuff?
Well, because, of the First Amendment. I mean, you have a right to access to the courts. You have a right to petition the government for redress of your grievances. So, if think about it, if I would rather have you have to deal with that than have some kind of a filter that we have to go through to get to court.
What do you think about the Canadian system, where at least this is what I'm told, that in Canada, if you file a lawsuit and you lose, it's automatic. You pay the defendant's court fees.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like that as a strict rule either. You know, one thing, I did a case in Hong Kong, and I like theirs, which is you either have to pay none of their fees, half of their fees, or 90% of their fees. For some reason, you never get all your fees back. But if, you know, the judge can sort of make a sliding scale of, well, your case was not really bullshit, so I'm going to give them some fees, but not all of them. You know, because let's imagine if you were the little guy and you got to go up against the big guy, and you say, well, I think I have a case here, but if I try to do anything about it and I don't win this, I mean, I'm in it for my life. I'm in it for bankruptcy. It's either win or bankruptcy. That's not ideal either. So, you know, really,
because it's like,
you know,
shouldn't that be a calculated risk that you take on your part to bring a lawsuit forward? Shouldn't there be an element?
Maybe, but you know, I just know that I've talked to people who have a legitimate case and they're afraid to bring it just because they're afraid of how much I'm going to charge them. Yeah. Much less what if we lose, right? So it's like, yeah, you know, I mean, sometimes I talk to people and they say, well, what should I do if I can't afford that? I'm like, I don't know, you know, you challenge them to a duel. I mean, it's, we don't have, you know, you don't have much choice.
Well, when I first looked into, back when I was gung-ho about I'm going to sue Facebook, I've quickly given up that dream. But, you know, first of all, you have to hire an attorney in that county in Northern California. And as you can imagine, that's $700-800 minimum an hour that you're paying out there. And, you know, you'd be looking at, just to get through discovery, easily $500,000, and no one can afford that. So it seems like I did have an attorney here that wrote a demand letter when they first took down my page, and they restored it. Like their law firm responded. They said, okay, this won't happen again. This is clearly a mistake, because some of the things I've been taken down for are just absurd. They're not violations. If I was actually violating Facebook's terms, I would fully admit it and take my punishment. But I'm getting, you know, things taken down for saying, you know, Merry Christmas and stuff like that. And so they did restore it, and they said, if you ever have an issue, contact us again. And then we had an issue when the page was taken down with 112,000 followers, and this law firm was no longer contracted. We sent more demand letters, and Facebook, they're so big and so powerful that they have the ability to just say, we're just going to ignore you, and I dare you to sue.
They don't care.
I dare you to.
Yep, they don't care. I mean, I had a case where we sued Twitter on behalf of somebody who got banned. And, you know, we knew we were going up against a big wall. We knew there was almost no chance. I told the other lawyers that put me in on, look, I mean, we'll do it, but you gotta understand, this is like, this is kicking a 99-yard field goal in the snow. And so what we did is we argued that Twitter was engaging in an unfair and deceptive trade practice by building up Twitter by telling everybody, we're never going to ban you unless you violate one of these enumerated rules. And it was very clear what you would do that would get you banned. So these guys didn't do that. They just really had the wrong political views. And then Twitter changed its terms and then kicked them off, just on the term of, because we feel like.
Who was the client?
His name was Jared Taylor. So he was he has some views, none that I agree with. He's described as a race realist, I think he calls himself.
Harmeet Dillon is currently representing against Twitter a woman named Megan Murphy. She's a feminist, left-wing feminist, and she just does not buy into the transgender thing. And she said, women, right. A man cannot become a woman. You'll never be what I am. And she was literally kicked off. A blue checkmark liberal was kicked off of their platform, and they're representing her. That was over a year ago. I haven't heard anything about it.
Look, I mean, there is a very set, there are certain political tripwires you're not allowed to kick over. Mm-hmm. All right. And that's one of them. And that is just the worldview that Twitter and Facebook have decided we are all going to have. Now, personally, I mean, I think if you're mean to transgender people, you're a dick. Like, come on, they don't they have enough problems? I mean, and I'm not saying that like it's but it's got to be hard enough. I mean, it's hard enough for me to deal with the trouble my dick gets me in. Could you imagine like then wanting to cut it off and then having problems? I don't want.
Though is like she's not shitting on them. She's just saying that this is what I believe. I don't think you are what I am.
And well, that is not allowed. Yeah, you can't have that view. Now, you can have that view in the privacy of your own home. It's
well, they get away with it because they say we're a private platform, and indeed they are a private company. However, and this is what I wanted to get into: how they're not. They are technically they're privately owned or whatever. But when the president of the United States uses your platform to make policy announcements, when every single member of the media, all 50 governors, every single member of Congress, every single United States senator is on there and uses that a way to communicate with civilians, they're not even legally allowed to block people. How can they honestly say it's a private platform anymore?
Well, it is, because it's still privately owned. So, the argument that you're making is one that I have made and I believe in, but I gotta freely admit, it is right now a losing proposition. But
so has anybody tried this way?
Oh yeah, I keep trying it and I keep losing. Let me tell you, any lawyer that you ever talk to says, "Well, I never lost a case," is a pussy, because they don't take hard cases. That fucking machines case, I lost that. And I lost the next one, and I lost the next one, and then other people took cases and lost the next one. I mean, it was, I think I had 25 appeals on that same issue that I lost. And then one day, a case went up to the Supreme Court. My good friend Ron Coleman handled it. And it was the Slants. It was this Asian American band that tried to, these Asian kids who said, we want to call ourselves the Slants. And they said, no, that's racially disparaging. You can't have that. And I'm like, how is that fair? Well, they won at the Supreme Court. And so Section 2A got thrown out. Now that took decades. That took from 1905 until like 2 years ago to get rid of that. So the argument you're making is called a prune yard argument. In California, there was a shopping mall called the Prune Yard Shopping Center, and that had become the de facto town square for this area. But they stopped people from protesting on their property. And the argument was, look, once this becomes the town square, I'm sorry, it might be your private property, but you still have to let people use it for the public square purpose. Now that won, and that worked, but that case has been narrowed and narrowed and narrowed, and really is like a derelict on the sea of jurisprudence now. So my argument is that the prune yard logic should apply online, and that logic has worked exactly 0 times. So, don't hold your breath. Don't bet any money on it. But I still believe in the philosophically in that once an organization, once a private company has occupied so much ground that it becomes the de facto public square, you're damn right it ought to be open to the public.
Right.
And it shouldn't, at least you shouldn't be limited on terms of, limited on the basis of some political decision that, some asshole is making in some back office in Santa Clara, because because she's mad at her father. I mean, that's just, it's just not right.
Attorney Will Chamberlain has kind of started pushing for this thing called platform access is a civil right. And his plan is that simply individual state legislatures can pass laws that make, that say every individual in Massachusetts has a right to platform access. So if Twitter or Facebook kicks off a citizen of Massachusetts, then all in theory you'd have to do is go down to your local district courthouse and file for an injunction, and they would be, essentially violating the laws of Massachusetts by doing that.
I don't think it would work, because Section 230 preempts any state law that might violate it. So I don't think you could do that. The only thing, what you could do, if you can't, you're never going to amend Section 230. All right. Because there is just no way that any member of Congress is going to dare to go against Google now. It's too late. The animal is too powerful and too big, and lobbies too hard.
Like, how are these not monopolies? There's no alternatives. I got kicked off Facebook. There's nowhere else to go.
Well, you might have noticed that the people at the registry don't really like to work wicked hard. How hard do you think they like to work at the antitrust division?
I don't know. I just
No.
They Teddy Roosevelt's day. I'm a former history teacher. Teddy Roosevelt lived to smash up companies like this. What happened to that?
Listen, Teddy Roosevelt would have taken Mark Zuckerberg out of his chair, pounded him, and then kicked him down the stairs of the courthouse.
He would have had him digging ditches in Panama and building that goddamn canal by himself.
Agreed. But unfortunately, we haven't had a president with Teddy Roosevelt's backbone in quite some time. I kind of thought Trump was going to do it. I thought Trump would have told the DOJ, go and take care of this. Nothing. Trump hasn't got. He doesn't have the spine for it either.
If there's a reason they haven't kicked off Trump off of Twitter, because they know what will happen then. They have to please him. So they kick off conservatives that, they're not big enough to create a stir. They'll kick off a guy with 100,000 followers here, 50,000 followers there. They're not going to kick off Ben Shapiro. They're not going to kick off Charlie Kirk, because they know.
Oh, they will.
Then that's going to be a big problem.
Give it time. They've been testing the waters. They started with what? With Milo.
Yeah.
Milo Yiannopoulos. Right. But Milo was harmless.
He really is.
And I think Milo was funny. And so they kick off Milo.
They kicked off Facebook.
But then you keep trying incrementally. And now it's like, look, if they kicked every conservative off, yes, it would be a problem. But you kick off just enough, you silence just enough of it that you have a political advantage. And I just don't think that's how the game ought to be played. But, I remember when conservatives owned all the radio stations and TV stations, and they were stifling any liberal speech. It was, unfortunately, this is, I know everybody likes to get mad when you say both sides, but both sides play this game. It's just the conservatives are on the outs right now. Maybe there'll be some new technology that only conservatives will have a monopoly on.
That. They're always just like, oh, well, something will come along. The really see, I'm what you call a wartime conservative. I'm conservative, but I also believe the government can be used as a powerful tool sometimes to enact good change, if you will.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm not like a libertarian in that, like, government always bad. And some conservatives are of the belief that, like, oh, well, we shouldn't regulate a private company because this is what we believe in. And those conservatives have never been kicked off. That's the big difference. Those are the ones that have never been kicked off. They get kicked off, they'll probably feel different.
Those conservatives are also statist conservatives who like big companies keep things in order. So, I think that, one of the problems you have here is I don't think it's necessarily even top down. Mark Zuckerberg, I'm sure, could give a damn who's on Facebook. I'm sure Jack Dorsey doesn't care who's on Twitter. But when you delegate these decisions in a huge organization, it's going to go mostly to younger people. And look, it's saying, if you're not a liberal when you're young, you have no heart. And if you're not a conservative when you're old, you have no brain. Mm-hmm. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but I definitely was far more left when I was 19 years old. So if you have less of an investment in things and, you're working in some closet in Silicon Valley, you're probably going to tend to be enjoying the fact that you can play hall monitor. Mm-hmm. A lot of these people, I think, missed the sash that they had in middle school where they could, blow the whistle and tell the teacher that somebody was walking around the halls without a bathroom pass. Hey, that's a lot of what's going on here.
People are asking in the comments, if you can you be heard in front of the Supreme Court?
Yeah,
you can. Okay, can any lawyer?
Yeah. I have a license to practice in front of the Supreme Court. My father is wicked impressed by that. I have to confess, it's not that impressive. If you have a law license that's 3 years old, a check for $100, and 2 friends who will sign your application who are already admitted, then you can get that license. Mm-hmm. So really, yes, I am, and thanks for asking, but almost any asshole can do that.
Yeah, but if anybody else in the comments wants to ask questions, I can ask the best ones I see. They said thanks for the answer with that one. What else is going to hit on here? Yeah. So, I mean, basically, is there any hope in the future? You think that, like, I mean, what the biggest worry I have with these tech companies is that they can influence elections. Because, for instance, my friend Mindy Robinson, she's running for Congress in Nevada, the 3rd district.
Yeah.
And she's got a Facebook follower with over 200,000 followers. And the page has been severely restricted. It says right on there. I get the same thing. People don't like it, they report it, and then they limit your reach. And so what you're doing with that, because social media is it's a major tool now in getting elected. Trump could not have got elected without social media. So how is this not election meddling?
You're allowed to do that. I mean, like, look, forever. Yeah. I mean, well, that's what media does. Like, for example, the
hearings for impeachment, literally over this exact same thing for 2 years about Russia meddling with our elections.
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy any of that, but let's just theoretically, if that were true, taking foreign money into our election laws, our election financing laws don't allow you to take foreign money from foreign companies, even if it's to buy, $1,000 worth of meme ads. The argument was
that the Russians used Facebook to manipulate whatever, but the biggest manipulators are Facebook themselves, who decide what goes up and what goes down. So how is that? Do Republicans just not have balls? Do they not understand how the internet works? Do they not understand the importance of this? I feel like some of the younger ones, like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, get it, but like, does Chuck Grassley understand any of this crap?
Yeah, I think they're just at a loss as to what to do. What are they going to do? I mean,
if the government, they can do whatever they want, can't they?
They can't really, though, because if you're in the House of Representatives and you're going to be up for election in 2 years, and Google and Amazon and Facebook all show up with their lobbyists all show up at your door and say, you want to keep your job or not?
Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth Warren's not scared of them. I mean, of all people, Elizabeth Warren's talking about, she probably makes Mark Zuckerberg shit his pants more than anybody.
I was a big Elizabeth Warren fan back in 2016. Look, I've come around. All right. As soon as she started saying that I have to pay more taxes to pay for friggin' deadbeats who don't want to pay their student loans, I was like, nah, I'm done with you. And then she went off the deep end on almost everything. But there was a time when I really liked her.
She could be good on something like that. Like that, this should be a liberal cause, antitrust.
Look, Liz Warren said the right things, when she was like, we ought to be putting bankers in jail and breaking up the tech companies. I mean, I thought we had, Teddy Roosevelt in her reincarnated. I was all excited about it.
Got a little Teddy in her, a little bit of fight. But at the end of the day, she's just a social justice warrior who's really just concerned about promoting herself, I think.
I mean, I'm afraid of what the country would look like if she got elected. Let's put it that way. And I was screaming in 2016, my God, why won't she run? I mean, in 2016, I'd have friggin' sold my house to donate money to her campaign. Now I'm voting for Vermin Supreme now. Who also
represented Vermin Supreme?
He is my client. Yeah, I'm very proud of that. And quite honestly, he is the only choice for you, America.
Is he on the ballot again?
He might get the Libertarian nomination. There's a big fight in the Libertarian Party now where fuck him. Now he shows up. Listen, even the Libertarian Party, a third party, the thing it needs to do is get 5% of the vote so they can get federal matching funds so it can actually put up a fight. Vermin Supreme gets that nomination. The Libertarian Party is getting 5%.
Vermin
guaranteed. Supreme. Vermin is awesome.
The long hair, and he shows up at parades and shit. That crazy.
He's the only presidential candidate I've ever gotten high with. But he is. I represented him in a case in New Hampshire where he wanted to go to a Hillary Clinton book signing event back in a couple of years ago because she had said something about, well, free healthcare is like free ponies. That's ridiculous. And he said, hey, she's making fun of my platform. So he wanted to show up at a book signing with a miniature pony. And the city said he couldn't go. The city of Concord, New Hampshire said he couldn't go because it would be disrespectful to Mrs. Clinton. And the Secret Service said no because they couldn't guarantee her safety if he brought the pony. And I said, are you shitting me? Are you telling me that all ISIS has to do is recruit an army of people to sit on the backs of miniature ponies, and the greatest military empire that has ever existed, we can vaporize all life on Earth. But our Secret Service can't stop a 2-foot tall pony from getting into a bookstore. And then, of course, you know, it's disrespectful to the candidate. Don't even get started with that shit.
He's a very serious candidate. Very serious.
We filed this thing at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and by 10 o'clock the next morning, it was settled.
Yeah. What's up with the boot on the head?
You know, I don't really ask. I never asked him about it.
Okay, that doesn't come up. Okay, good.
It doesn't come up. Yeah, I mean, I've never hung out with him with the boot. I've hung out with him like in his street clothes, where you kind of wouldn't realize it's him, and unless you're really looking at him.
All right, last topic here. What do you think about the recent complete evisceration of free speech rights in the name of a virus and COVID? So, for instance, churches were closed. That seems to be a First Amendment violation. You have the ability to literally gather and protest was outlawed because according to the Raleigh, North Carolina police, protest is not essential. They literally said that in a tweet.
What is more essential? I think there's nothing more essential. You know, I think that the look, there are the, you know, they told us this was to flatten the curve. You know, and I said, all right, I got to stay in the house for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I mean, I said, I don't have to shave. I actually did trim it down a little bit. I
fell for it too at first.
Yeah. I fell for it to the point that I started to look like the Unabomber, fuck the Gorton's fisherman. But you know, this is the most wholesale suspension of civil liberties, like since the Civil War. And fair enough. Okay. People might die. It might get dangerous. First of all, it is dangerous, but it isn't that dangerous. If you're not in a nursing home, I mean, it still sucks. You could get sick and die from it.
I got news for you. They're dying either way, even with the suspension of civil liberty.
I am,
you know,
but what I'm pissed about is like, it seems to have become a purely left-right issue. If you say, look, civil liberties are important here, you know, at the very least, you should be pissed off about it. You know, I don't go to church. I'm so atheist, you know, it like, you know, I drank communion wine one time and it burned so much I fell on the ground, and you know, not really, but you know, the last time I drank communion wine, it did burn like red hots. It's probably because I'm such an atheist. But I was horrified at the thought when a minister in Worcester wanted to have services, and he said, look, I'm going to sanitize everything. Everybody's going to wear a mask. Everyone's going to sit 6 feet away from each other. Nobody's going to, you know, how am I transmitting the virus? And it was like, that's not good enough. Mm-hmm. This is a fundamental right. So I don't like that right.
How come the ACLU, or how come no ambitious lawyer out there?
The ACLU.
Well, okay. How come an ambitious free speech attorney like yourself or somebody of your ilk hasn't gone out there and sued one of these states?
You know, you got to do it with the right client. I mean, Harmeet Dillon is knocking it out of the park in California. She's suing left and right, but you know, it's still not working. I mean, she and my buddy Gil Sperline, two really awesome First Amendment lawyers, brought a case against the state of California, against Gavin Newsom, because his stay-at-home order even covers you standing outside your house alone with a mask on protesting. And the judge said, well, can't I just, you know, make that okay? And they said, no, you got to strike down the whole thing and make them come back and do it constitutionally. Yeah. And judges are afraid. I mean, judges are politicians too. And I think the judge was just afraid to do it. I mean, look, they will consider you sometimes, you know, sometimes I'll be in front of a judge and I know I'm in the presence of jurisprudential greatness, because they will not care about what the outcome is. They will look at the Constitution and say, I have to do what's right by the Constitution. And I've been in front of judges like that. And it's an awesome thing. It's like, that's when it really works. Mm-hmm. But I've also been in front of judges who don't give a damn what the Constitution says, you know, and even they may even be doing what they think is right. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not evil people trying to do some crappy deal for their buddy. I mean, I've been in front of that as well. But I think the wholesale suspension of our First Amendment rights, and more people are not screaming right now, is a beautiful A/B test for totalitarianism in the future. So if you're not pissed off about it, I mean, you can go along with it. Look, I'm going along with this crap. I ordered some, I'm wearing masks. I mean, I figure masks are no big deal. If it makes people more comfortable, kind of like why I wear pants. I like the feeling of the breeze across my ball sack, but I'm going to wear pants because it makes you uncomfortable if I go into the store without them. Same thing with the mask. Yeah. That doesn't really infringe on my freedom of speech. But when I can't protest, Israel's had protests constantly where people got to get a permit. They got to show they're going to stand 6 feet apart from each other. They got to mark the squares on the ground. But damn it, they're not taking away the Israelis' right to protest. You're more free in Israel than you are in the United States.
Yeah. But somebody said that in Wisconsin, I haven't read about this. I guess I saw it trending on Twitter, though. Wisconsin Supreme Court overturned the governor's stay-at-home order. That's interesting.
That was an outstanding order. And it's not because they said that the order itself was wrong. All right? There is a process. You don't get to just say, I'm the governor, so what I say goes. In Wisconsin, you had to go through the proper process and get the approval of the legislature. Mm-hmm. They didn't do that. So now, the fact that was a 4-3 decision bothers me. That should have been a unanimous decision.
And I assume it was on party lines. I believe their court is 4-3 conservative. There was Scott Walker judges in there, and they do that a lot. So if that happened in Massachusetts, you don't think it would be the same outcome?
I don't know. We have a pretty good court here. I mean, I got to say the SJC is not one that I would walk into thinking that I'm politically, even though it may have, everything here is controlled by the Democrats. I don't think you'd walk into the SJC and know that you're going to lose that case either. Mm. I think you'd get a fair shake there.
So that's it. Yeah. I mean, I cannot, it seems like such an easy way for the government now to just crush dissent, to just say literally protesting us is illegal. If only the British knew it was that simple.
Oh yeah. That's all they had to do. I mean, look, I can see saying you got to do it 6 feet from each other. I can see saying you got to do it wrapped in bubble wrap, and you got to sit in a vat of hand sanitizer and do it, but don't say you can't do it, period. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of these regulations, they don't make any sense. Mm-hmm. And it's really, and I don't think it's necessarily bad people. Charlie Baker, I think, he's a principled guy. He's doing the best he can.
Charlie Baker wakes up every morning and he looks at his poll numbers and he beats off to them. He's like, "Oh, I got a 73 today. That's hot."
Of course, that's how he's going to keep his job. But really, I don't think Baker is doing what he has to do. Yes, to keep his job. Politicians generally, look, they either want to make sure that they don't make a decision. You make a decision that causes 10 people to die. And they can point to that and say, these 10 people died because of you. Then they're going to pass some fucking law named after one of the dead people. And that's going to be a campaign issue for you.
What about Andrew Cuomo, who he literally killed like 5,000 people by literally forcing them into nursing homes?
Yes. But
86% approval rating.
Right. But, like we said at the beginning, I think you said at the beginning of this, it's kind of too bad Hillary Clinton didn't win. And not because I want her to be president. But if she had won, we wouldn't have all this internet censorship. And if we had a Democrat in the White House, the press would be so optimistic right now, the Dow would be at 40,000.
True. No, you're right.
Because it would be nothing but optimism, sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows falling out of the sky. All right. That's what they would be reporting, except Fox News, and then Fox News would be the opposition saying we're all going to die. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, you got one network saying, that is conservative, and then everybody else is not, and so that's kind of how it's working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Somebody proposed this before. What if I moved my LLC to Nevada or just registered there where they have stronger anti-SLAPP laws? Would that protect me more?
Yes. I mean, you'd still be operating from Massachusetts. So when you get sued, you can get sued in two places: where your principal place of business is, mm-hmm. or where your corporate headquarters is, wherever your corporation exists. So you register your company in Nevada, you can get sued in Nevada, but it wouldn't stop you from getting sued in Massachusetts unless you move to Nevada. Or
I would need an actual address too in Nevada.
Yeah,
I believe.
and if they depose you and say, okay, where is this transmission coming from? And you say, well, it's coming from Worcester. Well, they can sue you here. So you'd have to actually move your operations there. Now, you
Okay.
could do something clever through your terms and conditions that people have to agree to it when they get on. But like that wouldn't cover this. This is on YouTube. Nobody had to click through for terms and conditions for this.
True.
So not a bad idea to have your LLC in Nevada.
People think
but
Delaware, that's like the refuge state. Everyone's like, start an LLC in Delaware. There's no
Delaware's
rules.
bullshit. No, look, Delaware is good if you're going to go public. Everybody thinks I got to open a Delaware corporation. Delaware is good if you're going to go public because it has great laws that you can screw with shareholders with. But if you're not doing that, you're a small LLC. You're never doing that. You're better off with Nevada or Wyoming or Florida, some place that has just a lower tax burden. Frankly, Delaware lawyers, there's like 7 of them. They're wicked expensive.
Yeah, okay. I would imagine so. I mean,
yeah.
All right. Anybody else have any more questions before we call it a night here? If you guys have any, people were asking stuff before. Let me just scroll through these real quick. Let's see. Anything else to add, by the way, or anything you want to talk about?
No, man. Take some questions.
All right. Yeah. If you guys have any questions,
Nobody's got a funny question.
What's your thoughts on a New Hampshire lawyer who tries to sue anonymous fake book? So basically, the guy in New Hampshire, not only did he get a temporary restraining order against me, he also got one.
Oh, he got it?
A temporary one. It hasn't
okay.
been. They always give out these temporary ones for 10 days, and then you have your hearing.
Right.
And he also got one against 2 fake Facebook accounts who wrote on his wall some comments. They weren't even threatening. The judge granted restraining orders against fake Facebook accounts. That's happening.
Yeah. I mean, I just have to believe that the judge didn't read it, and just rubber stamps him right away because, again, you got to think of the crisis principle, right? If there's a crisis and this is actually some threat and something happens to somebody, the judge is going to be held responsible.
Mm-hmm.
But if the judge tramples on your First Amendment rights for a little while, that's never going to be a campaign issue. Getting rid of First Amendment rights. Look, half the fucking country wants to get rid of them anyway.
Yeah.
And then half of the half that wants to keep them only wants to keep them when it favors their side. You are never, I am never going to be a popular guy at the party because I'm a First Amendment lawyer, because everybody's always going to say, well, I think free speech has gone too far. Don't you know, somebody said something bad about me on the internet, or somebody says, you don't think racist speech is okay. I'm like, no, I don't think it's okay, but I think it should be protected. There's a difference between it being, between me saying, yeah, it sounds wonderful, let's go to a Klan rally, and me saying, I want the Klan rally to be able to happen because, I want to have my Vermin Supreme rally.
It's true. Now, what do you think of the Michelle Carter verdict?
I actually agreed with it.
You did?
I did not think that was a First Amendment problem. No.
How come?
Because this is it. Although there are words used, I don't think it's a free speech issue. I think if you've got somebody's well-being in your hands, somebody's vulnerable and in your hands, and you direct them to kill themselves, I think the only thing I think that was wrong about that verdict is calling it involuntary manslaughter. To me, didn't sound right. It sounded to me more like it was reckless conduct, that intentional reckless conduct that caused his death. I'd have called it murder.
Really?
Yeah, I actually think she got off light.
You're not worried about the precedent that's set? Because I only bring this up. So I wrote about a guy 2 weeks ago. He kicked the shit out of his girlfriend in a video, and she taped it. Fucking animal, this guy. So I read a blog, and I literally have in the blog, I said, hey, I have an idea. You should start dating this chick. And I show a meme of Michelle Carter, and it says, like, why are you still here? Why haven't you done it yet? And
here's the thing. She came to him. He came to her in a moment of vulnerability where they had a special relationship. It's sort of like,
she did.
So so that's the situation. That's what it turns on. I think you could take every person you want, including somebody that you think just might kill themselves, and encourage them to kill themselves.
He
And
did.
I
kill
don't think
himself. He killed himself yesterday. The guy in the blood killed himself yesterday.
Yeah.
So now I got his family and stuff
That's
blaming
not
me
your-
for the suicide.
that is not your problem. Okay, that's
How is that
different.
different from the Michelle Carter thing, though?
Because Michelle Carter had a pre-existing relationship with the boy.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. We should remember his name and not hers. All right, Conrad. Yeah, Conrad, I mean, it's really sad, but she actually held the power of life and death over him.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where that's where I was prepared to allow for that. Now, I am in the minority among First Amendment lawyers on that. I am not in the majority on that. I'm very few.
What about weaponizing suicide? Are you at all worried that people will weaponize suicide now to get back at their bullies?
What, like to kill themselves so their bully gets in trouble?
Literally, like I've had people tell me that. Like, I'll kill myself so you go to jail.
Yeah, you won't go to jail for that. And I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about it if it's are you married?
I am.
Yeah, I'm worried about it if it's your wife. Okay, I'm worried about it if it's your kid. Or I'm even worried about it, like, let's say this little exchange blossoms into a wonderful friendship, and me and you are having personal conversations, and I tell you, hey man, I'm just really, I'm just feeling super down. I think tonight I'm going to take myself out, and I just wanted you to be the last one to know, and if I bring that to you, and you have that ability to talk me into it one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
That I think you bear some responsibility. I think we bear some responsibility for each other, but
about that case. Like, I kind of agree. The only way I do somewhat agree with that is, like, if you had a person who was mentally challenged, right? And you told them to walk into traffic on the highway because you thought it was funny and they died, certainly you're responsible, right?
Of course.
Right.
So and if you know that, and it's, so if you know that and you're taking advantage of that, that kid, that boy was damaged at that point. I mean, she had every ability to stop him. And she didn't look, it wasn't like she just said, yeah, go ahead. I mean, this was depraved act after depraved act. I mean, it was like hours of her saying, just go ahead and do it, will you? In fact, the kid even said he wasn't going to do it. The kid even like backed out of it. She said, get back in that.
And it was her motive that was really fucked up. She literally had this planned out so that she could get Facebook likes. Like, that was,
I don't know, I mean, I don't know about her motivation, if that was really it.
Well,
or
that's what she said. She as soon as he was dead,
sick.
she immediately took to Facebook and it's like, oh my God, I'm so sad. I loved him so much. Like, her motivation was that post,
Yeah. I mean, I think she got off light, and I think, and I hope it haunts her for the rest of her life.
I'm sure it, she's obviously.
I'm not so sure it is haunting her yet.
You don't think so?
I don't know, man. I mean, I haven't met her, so what do I know? What the media says about. If I believe what the media says about everybody, if I believe what the media said about myself, I would kill myself. So, I'm not going to believe it about her.
How'd you getting her on Tinder? Woo-hoo.
I'm surprised I haven't dated her yet. I mean, this is, when I date, I feel like, Tinder to me is more like Russian roulette.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions, guys? Do you have a YouTube page or anything like that? People are asking.
No, I try to have as little social media as possible. I didn't even go on my Twitter account for a year. I just finally went back on because I was locked in the goddamn house with nothing to do.
Yeah. Any other questions you guys have before we call it a night here? And I thank you for your time and coming on. People are really
my pleasure. This is wicked fun.
No, it's been informative. Because you are obviously a pretty well-known First Amendment attorney, and I'm a guy who lives for the First Amendment. Without it, I'd be pretty fucking screwed.
You're a First Amendment warrior, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, people always say, I'm like, I should have become a lawyer. I mean, you should see me on court days when I'm defending myself. I get up there, I'm like, I can put on a show just as much as this attorney over here. I'm pretty familiar with how this works.
Sometimes more. You won't get in trouble. Like, we got a law license to worry about. You can do more than we can.
Yeah, they're very flexible when you're pro se. They give you a lot of leeway. Yeah. Do you hate going up against pro ses? My lawyers fucking hate it.
I can't stand it. Yeah, in the hierarchy of bad things to deal with in court, first is bad lawyers. Like, when somebody gets a shitty lawyer, that's the worst thing you can possibly deal with. Then pro ses.
Mm.
right? And then good lawyers. Like if you're up against a really good lawyer, like that actually makes everything easier. Because when they're if they're smart and not shady, you can call them up and be like, all right, look, we disagree on these 15 things. Let's knock out 13 of them and let's just go argue about 2. I mean, I've had cases where the other lawyer is, I like it when the other lawyer is a really good lawyer and I can learn something from them.
Yeah.
I mean, some of my best buddies were were previous or even current opposing counsels. I mean, I've gotten along with my opposing attorneys a lot. I mean, I also come to like, muttering, go fuck yourself. You want to step outside to some of them too. I get a little worked up sometimes, but in general, I always presume when I've got an opposing attorney, this is somebody I'm going to be friends with.
Yeah. Have you ever seen these new guys? So the new phase on the internet, people we cover a lot are 2 groups of people, pedo poachers and First Amendment auditors. First Amendment auditors are these basically losers that go around filming the cops and stuff like that, just harassing them.
Yeah.
And then, claiming they're doing so for the First Amendment. But the pedophile poachers are a little bit more interesting. They are kind of like these vigilantes that they pretend to be 14-year-old boys on Grindr.
Oh God.
And they pretend, and they set these guys up, but they are making some major busts. The chief of police of Stowe, Massachusetts was arrested 3 weeks ago.
Really?
He went to go meet up with them. He got him on YouTube Live. I'm like watching.
Oh my God.
The police all watch his channel. He's getting like, some arrests. Some people have criticized him, saying he's a vigilante and he's not, working with the police. What do you think about that kind of vigilante?
I mean, it bothers me when the cops do those undercover stings, because it's like, I have seen cases where people, you could arguably say they wouldn't have done it if they weren't entrapped into it and there wasn't actually a kid involved. And how do you know one way or the other? And I think doing that on your own, I mean, look, I'm glad to see pedos taken out of circulation. I mean, Jesus Christ, of all the weird shit you can do, look at fuckingmachines.com, all this weird stuff you can do. And there's just one thing, 2 things we tell you not to do. Don't do kids and don't do somebody who doesn't want to do it with you. Like,
that's
there's 2 fucking rules. I don't even care if you do animals. I mean, I it's not my thing, but I'm not going to invite you over for dinner, but I'm not going to throw bricks at you either.
Yeah.
Right. So 2 rules. Maybe we say 3. Let's add the animals just for the sake of, completeness.
Yeah.
3 things you can't do. All the rest of it, let your mind run wild. Dress up as a mascot, a furry, do it wherever, do in a bubble. I don't care. Have a machine. But the other one, the First Amendment auditors, I mean, yeah, I get it. But a lot of these guys, I see a lot of these guys, sometimes I see them where they're really doing something that I think is helpful. Like when they go to the checkpoints. You ever been within 100 miles of a border and you get one of these border checkpoints?
No, I haven't.
I mean, when I'm in the Southwest, man, you drive through Arizona, just all of a sudden there's a roadblock, and they want you to show them that you're an American citizen. And these guys go film it because I think we ought to. I mean, I think it's wrong. I think it's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court disagrees with me, so I'm wrong. But I still think, one thing that they taught us in the Army was if you ever get captured, you're supposed to make yourself the biggest pain in the ass you can. You don't just go along to get along. You make yourself a fucking nuisance. And you know what? When you're at the fucking TSA, make that guy's day a nuisance. They stop you on one of these checkpoints, make it a nuisance. Don't do anything wrong. Don't hit them. Don't spit on them. Don't even swear at them. Just don't make it easy. And you lock down for this COVID crap, at least put some resistance into it. Yeah. And that's the thing. Americans used to be, home of the free, land of the free, home of the brave. No,
home of the
land
safe.
of the mewling fucking cowards. My God, if it was 1776 right now and we had this culture,
we'd be fucked.
Oh my God, everybody would be sucking on King George brand strap-ons right now. Are you kidding me?
George, there's a smallpox outbreak. Are you kidding me? We might infect each other.
Exactly. Because America is an idea. That's all it is. It's not fucking territory. It's not ethnicity. I got nothing genetically in common with you or a guy from Alaska, or nothing culturally. We're not all the same, but we all believe in one fucking idea, or we're supposed to. And maybe it's mythology, maybe things were never what we say the Constitution says they should be, but that is the aspiration we should come to it with, what it means to be an American. And they took that away, maybe even for our own good. I'll listen to that argument,
Not me.
but you know what? I'll listen to the argument, but I still will say there is no way it shouldn't be chafing you. It should have chafed you after 9/11, when the Republicans said your civil liberties don't mean much if you're dead. And it should chafe you now when the liberals say the same thing.
Yeah, it's become I think this is like a test for them. They wanted to see what they could get away with, how many of our civil liberties they could get away with, and now they know
all of them.
Like, take them all of them. Away. I mean, guns were banned in this state up until a week ago.
Instead of yelling at the government, most of us are yelling at each other.
Yeah.
It's like yelling at each other over this, and it's like, one thing that I really hate, that really makes me want to, have somebody date Michelle Carter is when they, when somebody likes to say, oh, well, you just want to go out and get a haircut, or you want to go out and play golf. Well, fuck you. You can't sacrifice golf. It's not about golf. Nope. It's not about the haircut. Okay. It's not about the nail salon. It's not about bowling. Okay. It's about all that shit together. It's about whatever the fuck I want to do. And that all rolled together is liberty. Mm-hmm. And we're letting the deepest casualty of this is our sense of that.
Mm-hmm. It's also people who own the bowling alleys and people who like survive that need those for this isn't a fucking game for the people who own these places.
Oh, well, look, the government loves to kill small businesses.
Oh, they love it.
Look, small businesses, they don't write campaign checks. All right. So when every business in your town is owned by Amazon, that'll be just fine. Jeff Bezos can send out millions of people, just squads of people all over. They're all working in that goddamn, in that fulfillment center, sending people out to deliver things. That's just fine. But, some little guy that owns a comic book store tries to deliver a comic book, which frankly is First Amendment protected activity. Mm-hmm. And he's somehow wrong. Mm-hmm. We don't chafe enough at our liberties being taken away.
We had a cop on I'm on the Jerry Callahan podcast once a week now. I was on a Monday and I did a story the night before about the Chicopee police, who are check out their Facebook page and it'll scare the shit out of you. They are bragging about going into a bar that they staked out, or a takeout place.
Yeah.
And they staked it out because they heard people inside were drinking alcohol. And so they go inside and they smell cigarette smoke and they use as a reason to go in the basement, and they found 4 guys down there drinking beer together. And they literally bragged about it, how they gave these guys citations, $300 fines, all this stuff. The bar now has a cease and desist and all this stuff. It's like, holy fucking,
and they wonder why people don't like the police, but you know what? Let's say something good about a cop, though. Did you see that cop in Seattle?
Yes, and then he was fired.
What a fucking hero. Yeah. I gave that guy $100 this morning. He's raised almost $400,000 for his legal fees and to support himself. I think that guy is an absolute hero. That guy, because that guy wasn't saying disobey this. I mean, really, the guy was saying exactly what I'm saying, but I think even more eloquently than I say it. He was saying that we didn't sign up for this, and maybe we have to do it. But at least say something. At least don't just take it lying down and respect the people's constitutional rights. My God, could you imagine if that police attitude caught on?
It would be, I mean, the New York police literally said, we're not doing social distancing policing anymore. Because guess what? The liberals that are pushing for this stuff, guess who's getting arrested for it? Not white people.
Yeah.
It's like out of 40 arrests, 1 was white. And they're like, oh crap, we accidentally instituted stop and frisk all over again. Oops.
Yeah. You Wokatron's happy now. I mean, And of course, what did you think would happen?
Yeah.
Like, really, what did you think would happen?
Well, it's like, luckily the Warwick police have come out and said, we're not doing this because we didn't sign up for this. And more
Good.
police would do that. I mean, shame on the Chicopee police and anybody else is doing this, because police have discretion. You don't have to enforce this. You can use discretion. It's about either you want to do it or you don't. You didn't sign it. You didn't go through the academy to be the mask police. Are you kidding me?
Right. Now, I mean, I don't have a problem with all the restrictions. You know, I think a lot of them were smart. You know, shutting down the movie theaters made sense. You know, and of course, maybe even the panic in one day. But now we're seeing. I mean, look, I'm not an epidemiologist, so somebody can feel free put it in the questions and call me a friggin' moron if I'm wrong. But I'm looking at the graph today of the number of deaths. And in every other state, and Georgia hasn't even. Georgia tracks with everybody else. Meanwhile, Georgia opened up.
No spike. You didn't hear about that.
And nothing happened. Now, maybe tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and have to eat shit on this and say, well, now there's been 10,000 dead people in Georgia. You know, Florida. Ron DeSantis was getting criticized like hell for leaving the state open, letting people go to the beach and go to church, and Florida hasn't had a spike. So
it's almost as if the sun factors in. It's kind of weird, this pattern.
Well, it's also, if you really look at what happened to, the way I'm seeing it, New York had a lot of cases. And then Cuomo said, you have to take them into your nursing home no matter what. You can't have anybody, you can't even ask if they have COVID. Then all of a sudden, all these people died, flooded the emergency rooms. And then everybody in New York that sneezed was a hypochondriac and ran to the emergency rooms. Meanwhile, there was that church group, which I think was it Falwell or Billy Graham's kid, either one. It was a Falwell or a Graham, both of whom I think are assholes.
Of course.
They showed up and put this field hospital in the park in New York, right? And I got friends of mine like cheering the fact that that they were protesting it, that they didn't want it there because it was run by homophobes.
The city council president of New York City, Corey Johnson, literally expelled them from the city after we used you guys. My sister, by the way, is a nurse at Mount Sinai Hospital that's attached to that.
Yeah.
And after it was no longer useful, they said, get the fuck out of here. We don't want you.
I mean, look, I don't want homophobes around either. I got friends, relatives that are gay, and I think if you're a dick to gay people, you're no friend of mine. But I think if I have to choose between, dying or going to a homophobic doctor, I'll go the homophobic doctor and confess my sins later about it.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, New York is screaming that everyone's going to die and the whole world is to shut down. Meanwhile, that ship they brought in that they were screaming that they needed it wound up having no patients on it.
Left.
The field hospitals, they didn't need it. So it was really just the nursing homes. And then, by the way, New Yorkers ran all over the damn country and spread it everywhere. If we had just put a wall around New York at that time and said, nobody leaves the 212 or 718 area codes or, 914 for good measure. Let's just put a barrier around the whole damn thing and you can't leave. But you know what? That would have been unconstitutional.
Yeah. This whole thing was a nursing home epidemic to begin with. Like in Pennsylvania, 70% of all deaths took place at nursing homes. And by the way, the woman who runs the health department in the state of Pennsylvania, it was a scandal that came out today. Her mother, he was a transgender person, former man from Massachusetts, became a woman there. And Dr. Rachel Levine pulled her mother out of a nursing home about 2 weeks into COVID.
Of course.
And put sick patients in. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm surprised the villages in Florida haven't exploded, but that's like the biggest elderly community in the world.
Yep.
But and by the way, the highest STD rate in like America.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
Oh yeah, the old people are fucking each other like crazy.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh no, it's a wrinkled orgy down there in the villages.
That's hot. It's interesting.
Oh yeah, a lot of prostitution arrests there as well.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Hey, good for grandpa. Good for grandpa.
Exactly, and grandma.
And Grandma too.
Grandma's getting it. I mean, Grandpa isn't just giving it to himself.
All right.
And I say, good on you, Edna.
Yeah. Well, on that note, guys, they were to call it a night here. I thank you again. Thanks for everybody coming and asking questions, everything. Sorry I couldn't get to everyone's questions on there. And we thank you for coming on. Maybe we'll do this again sometime.
Anytime, man. Been a lot of fun.
Peace, Dirty Riders.
Take care.